Willie Howard Mays, Jr. Born in segregated Alabama, Willie Howard Mays, Jr. grew up to become one of the greatest baseball players of all time. With his unmatched power and agility, he stepped into the history books as a two-time MVP with 660 career home runs and 24 All-Star appearances. Along the way, the Say Hey Kid captured hearts across America. His life story reminds us of the power of hard work and determination, and his legacy continues to inspire generations of Americans.
November 24th, 2015, the White House, baseball great Willie Mays receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom. That was a military aide reading the citation, and here are remarks from President Barack Obama.
We don't have time to list all of Willie Mays' statistics. 660 home runs, 302 lifetime batting average. The list goes on and on. I won't describe that miracle grab at the Polo Grounds either, because Willie says that wasn't even his best catch. I will say this, we have never seen an all-around five-tool player quite like Willie before, and we haven't seen one since. He could throw and he could field, hit for contact and for power, and of course he was so fast he could barely keep a hat on his head. On top of that, Willie also served our country, and his quiet example, while excelling on one of America's biggest stages, helped carry forward the banner of civil rights. A few years ago, Willie rode with me on Air Force One. I told him then what I'll tell all of you now. It's because of giants like Willie that someone like me could even think about running for president.
One thing that wasn't mentioned, Willie Mays first played in the Negro Leagues. So we'll do that in this podcast. In fact, this entire podcast is all about mentioning the Negro Leagues. Here's why. For over half a century, records from the Negro Leagues had been kept separate from Major League Baseball. This past May, MLB announced that stats from the Negro Leagues would now be incorporated into the record books. Inspired by the long overdue correction, C-SPAN's The Weekly is incorporating the Negro Leagues into this week's podcast. It's C-SPAN's The Weekly annual baseball episode. And this year, something special. We hear presidents and politicians honor the towering baseball players who got their start in the Negro Leagues.
As more people cancel cable TV, C-SPAN's funding is at risk. This summer, an anonymous donor has stepped up to help by matching all donations up to $25,000. I'm Caitlin with C-SPAN, and this means your gift will go twice as far. Your donation supports unfiltered access to government and public affairs programming, including the C-SPAN podcasts you value. Visit cspan.org/donate to make your gift today. Every dollar helps us reach our $25,000 goal. Thank you for listening and supporting C-SPAN. Donate today at cspan.org/donate.
Willie Mays began his professional career in 1948 with the Birmingham Black Barons. He played 3 seasons there. He appeared in the final Negro World Series at the age of 17. In 1979, Willie Mays was elected to Major League Baseball's Hall of Fame. He was named on 94.7% of the ballots, a huge number, but it does mean some people voted against him. Here's Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's tribute to Willie Mays on June 20th, 2024, a few days after he died.
Many call Willie Mays the greatest five-tool player in the history of baseball, but even that sells it laughably short. What Willie Mays meant to the game, what he meant to New York, what he meant to America can never be recorded with statistics. He was a living embodiment of America itself. Born in the segregated South, served in the Army, captured the hearts of millions from New York to San Francisco by dominating America's pastime at a time when black players were just beginning to ascend into the major leagues. He'd play stickball with the kids on the streets of Harlem, get swarmed by admirers at the Red Rooster, and he was simply one of the nicest and coolest and most magnetic Americans who ever lived. That combination, nice, cool, and magnetic, it's a rarity. It's a rarity in anyone. There it was in Willie Mays.
Willie Mays' early days in the Negro Leagues started him on a career path similar to other baseball greats. The Negro National League was established in 1920. The Professional Baseball League was formed in response to black players being banned from the major leagues. The creation of the Negro Leagues provided a playing field for more than 2,600 black and Hispanic players to showcase their world-class baseball abilities. The Negro Leagues introduced an exciting brand of baseball that was in stark contrast to the major leagues. In 1945, Major League Baseball started signing players from the Negro Baseball Leagues to its minor leagues. By 1950, 5 major league teams had black players. By 1953, 7 clubs had 20 players. And by 1957, 14 clubs had 36 players. Here's more history from Representative Terry Sewell, Democrat from Alabama, June 13, 2024.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to recognize Major League Baseball's tribute to the Negro Leagues, which will take place at the historic Rick Wood Fields in Birmingham, Alabama, beginning Tuesday, June 18, 2024, and culminating with an MLB game, the Giants versus the Cardinals, on Thursday, June 20th. Built in 1910, Birmingham's historic Rick Wood Field is the oldest professional baseball field in the United States. For 36 years, it served as the official home to the Birmingham Black Barons of the Negro Leagues. And to this day, it continues to stand as a living monument of baseball history. For decades, the Black Barons were a beacon of excellence in Birmingham's community. Between 1943 and 1948, they racked up a win percentage of more than 60% and captured 3 Negro League pennants. At the height of Jim Crow segregation, the success of the Black Barons at Rickwood Field galvanized and united Birmingham's black community. The stands were always overflowing with fans eager to cheer on their favorite team. Over the years, Rickwood Field has hosted a number of baseball giants, including Willie Mays from Fairfield, Alabama, Satchel Paige, Jackie Robinson, Hank Aaron, Josh Gibson, and of course, Birmingham's own Black Baron, Reverend William Greason, who at the age of 99 continues to give back to his Birmingham community as pastor of Bethel Baptist Church, Bernie Points.
At 114 years old, Rickwood Field is the nation's oldest professional ballpark. It's the first place Willie Mays played pro ball and the last ballpark still standing that he called home. On September 18, 2002, the U.S. House recognized the teams and players of the Negro Baseball Leagues for their achievements, dedication, sacrifices, and contributions to baseball and the nation. Here's Republican Congressman from Oklahoma, J.C. Watts.
As we work to educate the public on the rich and awesome history of the Negro Leagues, we must also reflect on the progress that has been made in such a relatively short amount of time. Today, we think nothing of seeing a black man at the plate hit home run after home run on teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Giants and the Braves. It is difficult to realize that we would not see that same player a half-century ago. Jacques Barzoun, a French-American historian and former dean of Columbia University's graduate school, astutely observed in his book, God's Country and Mine, in 1994, he said, quote, "Whoever wants to know the heart and mind of America had better learn baseball," end quote. Mr. Speaker, baseball is America. Along with apple pie and jazz and the automobile, it symbolizes who we are as a nation. But let's not forget about who played in the shadow of the big leagues when our country subscribed to the ideology of separation.
Jackie Robinson was a military veteran and member of the Negro League's Kansas City Monarchs. He broke Major League Baseball's color barrier. He joined the Brooklyn Dodgers and paved the way for other black and Hispanic baseball players. From April 24, 2013, here's future Democratic House Leader Hakeem Jeffries.
I've got the honor and the privilege of representing the 8th Congressional District, which includes parts of Queens, and it's largely anchored in neighborhoods in Brooklyn. And 100 years ago, this month, in April of 1913, Ebbets Field opened for the first time. Ebbets Field, as the movie 42 has illustrated is the baseball stadium where on April 15th of 1947, Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in America's pastime and became the first African American to participate in a Major League Baseball game. Now, we know that prior to that moment, African Americans, solely on the basis of their color, were prohibited from playing Major League Baseball. And so you had individuals like Cool Papa Bell and Josh Gibson, any number of individuals who were stellar at their craft, amongst the best who've ever played, confined to the Negro Leagues, unable to ever get onto a Major League Baseball field because of the color of their skin. That all changed on April 15, 1947, when Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier. And I think that holds an important point for us, what Jackie Robinson illustrated, that if you get an opportunity to get on the field of play, folks who otherwise have been excluded from the mainstream can demonstrate that they will perform just as good, if not better, than everyone else.
On March 2nd, 2005, the Congressional Gold Medal was awarded to Jackie Robinson. President George W. Bush presented the award to his widow, Rachel Robinson.
I'm honored to be here to present the Congressional Gold Medal to Mrs. Robinson. It's a great tradition of our Congress to honor fantastic and noble Americans, and we're doing just the thing today with Jack Roosevelt Robinson. You know, he's a great ball player. Anybody who follows baseball knows how great he was. He's fantastic statistics, MVPs, all the big honors you could get, but his electricity was unbelievable. Think about this. This is a guy who inspired little 7-year-olds to dream of wearing 42 and dashing for home in Brooklyn, and a 7-year-old like me hoping to get his Topps baseball card, even though I was an avid Giants fan. He was an amazing guy, and his story was powerful then, and it is powerful today. His story is one that shows what one person can do to hold America to account to its founding promise of freedom and equality. It's a lesson for people coming up to see. One person can make a big difference in setting the tone of this country.
3 months after Jackie Robinson went to the majors, he was followed by Larry Doby. During World War II, Larry Doby served in the Navy in the Pacific. In fact, more than 50 Negro Baseball League players served in the armed forces of the United States during World War II. He was honorably discharged in 1946, then played baseball in the Negro Leagues for the Newark Eagles. Larry Doby broke through racial barriers to become the first African American to play professional baseball in the American League. On December 13, 2023, he was honored with a Congressional Gold Medal. It was Mike Johnson's first gold medal ceremony as House Speaker. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell noted Larry Doby's Negro League roots.
The call that would make Larry Doby the first African-American player in the American League came in the middle of a doubleheader on the 4th of July. At 23 years old, Larry was already a married man, a war veteran, and the leading hitter for the Newark Eagles of the Negro Leagues. By that day in 1947, he got his biggest reminder yet that history doesn't wait around. Larry's call-up meant catching a train to meet his new Cleveland Indians teammates on the road in Chicago. But I have it on good authority that he quite nearly took a much shorter trip to follow Jackie Robinson to Brooklyn. If only my childhood favorite Dodgers could have been so fortunate.
As players in the Negro Baseball Leagues signed to play with the major leagues, attendance dropped. The Negro Baseball Leagues folded in 1960, 40 years after they were created. Gone, but remembered. In a White House ceremony less than 3 months after he died at age 94, Negro League legend Buck O'Neil was honored with the Medal of Freedom. Here's President Bush on December 15, 2006.
With us today is Warren O'Neil, who will accept the Medal of Freedom on behalf of his brother, John Jordan Buck O'Neil. Buck O'Neil passed away in October after a baseball career spanning more than 7 decades. He joined the Negro League in 1938 as a first baseman for the Kansas City Monarchs. Buck O'Neil won 2 batting titles and played on 9 championship teams. And as a manager, guided the Monarchs to 4 league titles. After finishing his playing career, Buck O'Neil joined the Chicago Cubs as a scout and later as the first African-American coach in the major leagues. He never did slow down. For the rest of his life, he was active in baseball, not just from the stands or the dugout. In July of this year, he took a turn at bat in a minor league all-star game in Kansas City. They wisely pitched around him. He drew a walk at the age of 94 years old. Buck O'Neil is also remembered as one of the game's best historians and ambassadors. He was the driving force behind the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. He was proud to have been its chairman. But he once said it never should have been a Negro League. Shouldn't have been. Buck O'Neil lived long enough to see the game of baseball in America change for the better. He's one of the people we can thank for that. Buck O'Neil was a legend, and he was a beautiful human being, and we honor the memory of Buck O'Neil.
And here's the citation on Buck O'Neil's Medal of Freedom, read by the military aide.
Warren O'Neil, accepting on behalf of John Buck O'Neil. Buck O'Neil represented excellence and determination both on and off the baseball field. Rising above the injustice of a segregated country and sport, he served his nation in World War II, was a talented player and manager in the Negro Leagues, and was Major League Baseball's first African-American coach. As a co-founder of and inspiration for the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, he served as the museum's chairman of the board and worked to ensure that generations of baseball legends would not be forgotten. The United States honors John Buck O'Neil for his generous spirit, devotion to baseball, and unyielding commitment to equality.
On November 20th, 2013, President Obama awarded Ernie Banks the Presidential Medal of Freedom and specifically mentioned the Negro Leagues.
Today, we salute fierce competitors who became true champions. In the sweltering heat of a Chicago summer, Ernie Banks walked into the Cubs locker room and didn't like what he saw. Everybody was sitting around, heads down, depressed, he recalled. So Ernie piped up and said, "Boy, what a great day, let's play 2." That's Mr. Cub, a man who came up through the Negro Leagues making $7 a day and became the first black player to suit up for the Cubs and one of the greatest hitters of all time. And in the process, Ernie became known as much for his 512 home runs as for his cheer and his optimism and his eternal faith that someday the Cubs would go all the way. And that's serious belief. That is something that even a White Sox fan like me can respect. But he is just a wonderful man and a great icon of my hometown.
Another baseball legend who got his start in the Negro Leagues got 2 presidential honors. On July 9, 2002, President Bush gave the Medal of Freedom to Hank Aaron.
Hank Aaron overcame poverty and racism to become one of the most accomplished baseball players of all time. When I was in the ballpark, he said, I felt like I was surrounded by angels, and I had God's hand on my shoulder. by steadily pursuing his calling in the face of unreasoning hatred, Hank Aaron has proven himself a great human being as well as a great athlete.
And 2 years earlier, a soaring tribute to Hank Aaron in President Bill Clinton's final State of the Union address.
Last February, because I thought this was so important, I created the White House Office of One America to promote racial reconciliation. That's what one of my personal heroes, Hank Aaron, has done all his life. From his days as our all-time home run king to his recent acts of healing, he has always brought people together. We should follow his example, and we're honored to have him with us tonight. Stand up, Hank Aaron.
The entire chamber gave Hank Aaron a long standing ovation. Finally, let's hear about Satchel Paige. For that, we turn to Joe Biden. He has cited the great Negro Leagues pitcher on several occasions. Like on January 22, 2015, Vice President Biden addresses the U.S. Conference of Mayors.
I just had a birthday, and everybody was saying, God, I said, you know what? Speaking of sports, I adapted Satchel Paige's view of birthdays. He didn't make it to the bigs till age 45, pitched 5 years. Probably would have been the greatest pitcher in history had he been able to pitch in the big leagues before segregation was ended by Jackie Robinson. But he pitched for 5 years, 45 to 50. Age 47, he just won a game. All the sports writers go in, it's his birthday. And they say, Satch, what's it feel like being 45 in the big, or as this was 47 then, 47 in the bigs, pitching? He said, boys, that's not the way I look at it. So I look at it this way. How old would you be if you didn't know how old you are? I'm 42. I'm 42.
And February 12, 2019, giving a eulogy for Congressman John Dingell.
There's only a few things John and I had in common. He was so much better than I was at everything, but we agreed on one thing. Satchel Paige got it right about age. When Satchel Paige pitched his win against the against the Cubs, and on his 47th birthday, he didn't get to the majors till after Jackie Robinson had made it. Probably the greatest pitcher in the history of baseball, still having an arm at 47. And Gov, he pitched a win on his 47th birthday, and the press went into the locker room and said, amazing, 47, pitching a win. How do you feel about being 47, Satch? He looked at me and said, I don't look at age that way, boys. He said, how do you look at it? He said, look at it this way. How old would you be if you didn't know how old you was? I'm 42, John was 50. So I want to get it straight, okay?
And as president during a Veterans Day ceremony, November 11th, 2021, the same day as the birthday of Donald Blinken, who served in the Army Air Corps during World War II and is the father of Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
Happy birthday. Thank you for your service to our country. And I just want to tell you, I know you're a little younger than I am, but, I've adopted the attitude of the great Negro at the time pitcher in the Negro Leagues, went on to become a great pitcher in the pros, into the Major League Baseball after Jackie Robinson. His name was Satchel Paige. And Satchel Paige, on his 47th birthday, pitched a win against Chicago. And all the press went in and said, Satch, it's amazing. 47 years old. No one's ever pitched a win at age 47. How do you feel about being 47? He said, boys, that's not how I look at it. I said, how do you look at it, Satch? I said, I look at it this way. How old would you be if you didn't know how old you were? I'm 50 years old, and the ambassador's 47.
And on October 29, 2021, at the Vatican, Joe Biden meets Pope Francis. Through a translator, the president tells His Holiness about Satchel Paige.
Thank you for that. He was a famous African-American baseball player in America.
I know. Afroamericano.
and he didn't get to play in the Major League Baseball until he was 45 years old because he was black.
Non gli hanno permesso di giocare nella lega principale fino a che aveva 45 anni perché era nero.
And he was a pitcher.
E lui era quello che batteva la.
And usually pitchers lose their arm when they're 35.
In genere loro non ancora hanno cominciato.
He pitched to win on his 47th birthday.
E invece
The press walked in the locker room and said his name was Satchel Paige.
si chiamava Satchel Paige. Allora gli giornalisti sono andati nello spogliatoio.
The commanding executive said, Satch, no one's ever pitched to win at age 47. How do you feel about pitching to win on your birthday?
E tutti hanno detto, nessuno c'è mai riuscito a fare questo a 47 anni. Come ti senti averlo fatto il giorno del tuo compleanno?
And he looked at me and said, boys, that's not how I look at age.
I'm sorry, what is it?
Boys, that's not how I look at age.
Dice, ragazzi, non si guarda all'età.
I look at it this way. How old would you be if you didn't know how old you were?
And now, a bonus clip. In 1991, the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum opened in Kansas City, Missouri. In 2015, the Kansas City Royals won the World Series. On July 21, 2016, at the White House, President Obama honored the world champion Kansas City Royals. He noted that the Royals had just broken ground on their Urban Youth Academy in Kansas City, a nonprofit organization that empowers young people.
And you know, what's great is the academy is built right next to the Negro League Museum. So you can see the link between Jackie Robinson and Satchel Paige, and to Frank White, to George Brett, to Salvador Perez, and Alex Gordon, and the next generation of Kansas City baseball stars. And you see that continuity and understand how central this game is to America.
That's it for this episode of C-SPAN's The Weekly. A reminder to search C-SPAN's video library for more politicians talking about more Negro League players. You'll even find the time C-SPAN visited the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum in Kansas City, 1996. Here's museum curator Raymond Doswell.
In 1920, there was a meeting here in Kansas City at the Paseo YMCA. Rube Foster, along with his brother, another popular team owner, Wilkinson, who owned the Kansas City Monarchs, and some others came together here in Kansas City to form a collective business structure for forming the Negro Leagues. And there were 8 original teams in that structure. That was called the Negro National League. A few years later, more teams in the East began to form, and they called themselves the Eastern Colored League. And with that, you have a bigger rivalry, which was akin to the major leagues, brewing here among black ball players. The whole effort was to, in one sense, to kind of mirror the major leagues so that people could see that these players were talented and they could play in a competitive level.
For now, thanks for listening and happy searching.